Welcome to EntrePods, the most cutting-edge podcast for entrepreneurs and investors. We answer the hottest question today. So now what? We are radically civilized with a focus on durable solutions that make the most positive impacts in your business, financial, personal, and community life. The world right now belongs to entrepreneurs. Today, we'll show you through our expert conversations that matter, the limitless opportunities you have right now to live the life of your dreams. The best version of you and your business starts now. Welcome to EntrePods.
Hello, EntrePods. I am so excited to have you here today, and we have a very unique guest. And I know I often say this, but today's guest has such an interesting and unique backstory. You're all going to want to sit down and listen to it, because I don't want us to focus on this backstory as much as I want us to focus on the redemption arc, because it doesn't matter how we fall. Grace is not achieved through falling. It's through how we get up. The person that we're going to talk to today is a coach, an author, a speaker, a mentor, and a real estate investor and real estate guru that has managed over $285 million worth of assets. So he comes from a very strong and successful background. And right now, his focus is helping people get short-term cash flow with long-term wealth. And I want us to give a great big welcome to the show to Mike Morawski of mycoreintentions.com. Welcome, Mike. It's really great to have you here.
Hey, Jennifer, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. So,
yeah. We actually talked because I reached out to Mike on LinkedIn, and then I'm talking to him because he has a pretty big background. You know, he went into multifamily. He was a contractor, and he was doing all this stuff. And so I really get into, real estate investors, and especially people who go into multifamily and syndicating. And then as we're talking, he said, "Oh yeah, and then I went to prison for 10 years. And I'm like, do I still want to get on this call? Hang up? No. But, it freaked me out a little bit, because most of us don't meet people who've been to prison. And then I Googled, and of course it was a pretty big case. It was a Ponzi case, and it was a real big deal. And he just basically got caught up in the 2008, like everyone else did, just shuffling things around to try to save for his investors. But he made some really poor choices trying to save it. And I believe his intention was correct because of what he's done with his life since then. And so that's why I wanted to have him on the show, because, I do want people that we can feel safe with here on EntrePods, but I want Mike to talk a little bit about this and I don't want us to focus too much on it in our little bit of brief time together, because what he managed to do after making a mistake, an embarrassing mistake, it was humiliating, you're high on the hog and then everybody's talking crap about you. And here he goes. So anyway, Mike, go ahead and take it away, because everybody's going to want to hear this.
Man, I've never had an intro like that, Jennifer, where somebody just throws it out there in traffic. Like, and then he went to prison. Oh my goodness. I usually it's kind of like doing yoga and stretching into the headstand, right?
Oh,
it's not like just throwing it right out there. So
we got 30 minutes. I want people to hear this. It's amazing, because he really gently eased into it. But for me, that's kind of like, wow, and here we are talking, and so much has happened. And anyway, so tell us about, you were pretty high on the hog before this happened, though. I mean, you were killing it in real estate.
So yeah, even though I was killing it in real estate, I wasn't flying private. I didn't have a big boat. I didn't buy big fancy cars or houses. And I lived a, upper class middle lifestyle, upper middle class lifestyle. But I got started in real estate, as a sales agent. And I went into the business via the construction business. I had a general contracting company. I woke up one morning and I was totally burnt out. I was still banging nails, couldn't figure out what I wanted to do, and looked at my wife at the time and said, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore." So sold the company, took a year off. During that year, I house hacked a couple of houses, and I have always been of the opinion success leaves clues. And so I met a real estate agent along the way who was extremely successful. And I went to him and I said, "Hey, Todd," I said, "I would like to go in real estate." And he goes, "Man, I think you'd be great at it." he goes, you have the personality, you have this temperament. I think that's a sales, you'd be a great sales guy. I said, excellent. I said, could I shadow you? Could I come and follow your team? And he said to me, he goes, no. It's like, what? He said, I'll do better for you. He goes, I'll make you a cassette tape. Now, Jennifer, I'm dating myself, right? Because I don't think you can find anything to make a cassette tape on.
At least it wasn't an 8-track.
Yeah, right. Thank you. So I listened to this cassette tape over and over and over again. And here's where I say success leaves clues, because I took those basic fundamentals that he taught, and I practiced them every day. I did the same thing over and over and over again. My first 9 months in the business, I sold 78 houses. I went on to build a team selling 125 a year and did that consecutively for about 8 years. 2005, the market started to change. And here again, I say success leaves clues. Well, I used to watch a couple of local syndicators in Chicago. And I understood the model where you raise private equity, you find a great real estate deal, you stay in the middle and marry the two. And as long as everything goes well, everybody makes money. Well, in 2005, I syndicated my first deal. I went out on to raise $18 million. I bought $60 million in real estate. It was about 4,000 apartments in 5 different states. And I did that in 30 months. I went on to build a property management company managing 7,500 units. And there were some challenges along the way with all that. So they were challenges like I was over leveraged. I bought way too much property, way too fast. I paid too much for property because the market was going straight up and I was paying higher and higher prices for property. I was over leveraged. I bought $60 million worth of real estate at 15% down. The bank should have stopped me a long time before that.
Yeah, no, but the banks weren't stopping anybody then. So
Right.
guys, just, for those of you who didn't live through the 2008, 2010 real estate crash, what he was doing was not unheard of. There were people who were over leveraging like left and right. I mean, banks were pushing people who had no ability to afford their mortgages into houses. Like they should have qualified for a $150,000 house, and just even single people were getting pushed into 300,000 and above houses. And it was just left and right. They had some really predatory type of interest only loans that were going on at that time. And those were for single people. And it ran the gamut from just, Joe and Mary Dean floral, arrangers to people like Mike who were doing it on a bigger stage.
So here's an interesting loan that they were doing back then, right? Is they would give you, they'd take the price of the house, just say it was $100,000. And they tell you that it was worth 125. This was a desk appraisal. Nobody even went out and looked at this stuff. And then they'd give you a loan, an 80-20 loan based on the 125. So you were financed into the house at about $110,000 with a value of 125 because the market was going up so strongly. There was a company that was classic for that. And I probably had 20 residential loans just like that. And that company went out at the same time that Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, AIG went out. So here's what happened, right? 2008 rolls around and I realized that I'm sitting at lunch with my CFO one day and the news happened to be on. And I looked at him and I said, as they're carrying boxes out of Lehman Brothers by the dozens, I looked at my CFO and said, we're screwed, aren't we? He goes, yeah, we're in big trouble. Because the whole world fell apart, right? You had all this bad paper, you had all this predatory lending, you had AIG that went out of business, Bear Stearns gone. These are companies that were around for hundreds of years. Lehman Brothers. So as a result of that, the residential market totally came off of the rails, turned upside down. There's a lot of economics that went along with that really distorted the market. But more importantly, I looked at it and I said, geez, people are going to need a place to live. They're going to lose their single family homes. Let's buy more apartments. So I bought all these apartments, right? And like I said, I was very unstable. We didn't stabilize anything along the way. 2007, I bought 17 properties for about 2,700 units. So there's a lot of property in a lot of different markets, and trying to get your arms around everything was really difficult. So I should have slowed down a long time before. And as a result, 2010 rolled around, and I was, very shaky, very unstable, very over leveraged. And I had people move out of my properties, so the occupancy went down. And as a result of the occupancy going down, my NOI dropped. Now, I'd been involved in recessions in the past that corrections were maybe 10% and lasted 7 or 8 years, or I'm sorry, 17 or 18 months. But this thing was 40% correction in the marketplace and lasted 7 or 8 years. People are still affected by it today, Jennifer.
Yeah, we have whole entire generations that are affected by it.
Absolutely.
Gen X
Yep,
is one.
absolutely. And so as a result, I'm the kind of guy, I'm the hero. I never want to fail. I don't want to disappoint you. I don't want to have to come to you and say, Jennifer, I screwed up. I'm sorry. The market's bad. I made some mistakes. So I had some properties that were starting to go to foreclosure, and I knew that some of my investors were going to get hurt, and I didn't want them to get hurt. So what I did was I started to move money between companies. Like I said, I had 38 companies, and I had some that were very profitable and others that weren't. So I started moving the money back and forth from non-profitable, or from profitable companies to non-profitable, to try and right the ship and hold everything afloat. And what happened was that I couldn't. It outdid me, right? So I moved that money, and that really wasn't a problem, because I had my accountant and my outside legal counsel both said, hey, it's okay to do that. Just leave a paper trail. And, when the market comes back, you'll be able to put the money back. Hence, I thought that 17, 18 months, we'd be fine. Well, it didn't happen that way, and the market didn't come back. And I wound up being indicted on wire fraud and mail fraud charges because I didn't disclose to my investors the movement of money. So,
yeah, which is very critical, and that's why they label it a Ponzi. So basically, you're leveraging you're taking money from newer investors or investors that are doing well to pay in the investors that are not doing so well, and you're trying to hope that it all comes forward. But there's like an entire process for that. That, of course, what wasn't done. But so let's get through that, because I want to get through to, so then this happened, and everything that you had been worried about crashed to a close in the most horrifying, embarrassing, public way possible. And it's kind of hard. Like, you're trying to be a decent person. I can see that. But then the FBI is writing these reports. It's on websites. It's on this. Like, how did you get through that? Because we know what happened. So just FYI happened. He went to prison. But then instead of letting it all go to pot or becoming bitter, let's talk about what you started doing there and then where you're at today. So people can see you can get through anything, even something as embarrassing, and you made a mistake and it was a big one, but you can get through anything. So let's talk about that.
So let me be clear on this, though. It wasn't a Ponzi scheme. Ponzi scheme is when you raise money to pay money, and we didn't do that. We moved money between companies, so it was all internal. And
why was it written like that on the FBI site?
Because the judge threw it out. If you look at the court transcripts, the judge says, "Don't even bring that up again, because this wasn't a Ponzi scheme."
Isn't that crazy? But it's still on the internet. Yeah. See, the internet lasts forever, even the negative things. And then you have to go right to the source, which is so annoying, right? Because no one's going to edit them for keeping those old websites up. But anyway, because I saw it too.
System's broken. The system's broken. And, there's a lot of bad things that happen to people as a result of it. So I've had to fight back, right? So here's what happened, right? I go to prison. And I'll never forget that sentencing day in court. In court, the judge said, he goes, "Hey, this was not a Ponzi scheme. This is mail fraud and wire fraud. So don't go down that road." He didn't raise money to pay money. It was movement of money and non-disclosure. So if you ever read the transcripts, the court transcripts, that's what the judge said at sentencing. But here's what I remember when the judge said, you're standing up at the bench in front of the judge. I've got a courtroom full of people, probably 60 people in court, 35 people there in favor of me not to go to court. And then some investors that got hurt. And that's a whole nother story. But here's what I remember. The judge sentences me to 120 months. And this is all I hear is, and it was like everybody sucked the air out of the room. And it got very stagnant and very surreal. And all I can remember is my wife and my two daughters that were in court that day just start crying. And I'm standing there 120 months, 12 goes into one.
Trying to do the math.
I'm like, holy shit, that's 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, can I say that on the air?
Yeah.
Sorry. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. So picture this. I live a pretty modest lifestyle.
No, I'm picturing it, and it's just scary because, I've worked with so many companies who just fly with the seat of their pants, and they just do things, and you don't, and sometimes it just doesn't even dawn on you what you're doing is even wrong because your intention was not to do that, but it's still, sometimes it happens. That's why I work with people on foundation and compliance, and I come in and do that because, it's scary. This is scary. I'm scared.
So what was interesting was I go from this middle-class lifestyle, being the neighborhood baseball coach, soccer coach, being home most nights for dinner, great marriage. All of a sudden I'm living in a 12 by 12 room with 3 men I don't know out of a 2 by 5 locker with 3 green outfits and 5 pairs of underpants, wondering what the hell happened to my life. As a result of that, I walked around wondering what I was going to do. There were guys around me that thought that they needed to take my shoelaces because I was really distraught. I was in prison about 17 days thinking it can't get any worse. My life is over. And then my wife told me she was going to divorce me. Then my life was really over. It wrecked me. And so I couldn't figure out what had happened and what I had done with my life. I'm in prison about 6 weeks, and I walk into the gym one day, and this guy walks over to me and he goes, "Look, don't let these people beat you. All they want to do is take from you everything you've ever had or known. They can take your apartments, they can take your real estate, they can take your money, they can take your cars, they can disrupt your family, but what they can't take is what you're made of. They can't take who you are inside, your knowledge, your experience, your desire." He goes, "Get that 10 years back." He said, "Look, all you got to do is start coming to the gym every day, working out. Lose that weight." I was probably 35 pounds overweight. He goes, "Lose that weight, get in better shape physically. You'll start to feel better mentally." This is the best advice I ever got from an inmate in federal prison, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I started going to the gym. I started working out, started feeling better. I went to college. I got a bachelor's degree in theology. I wrote 2 books while I was gone. One's called Exit Plan, Your Complete Guide to Multifamily Investing and Why You Need an Exit Plan Before You Buy. I'd love to give a copy away to your listeners.
Oh, yeah.
And I wrote a book on property management. I wrote an ethics course. I taught real estate investing, property management, and ethics in prison for 5 years. I taught Bible study in prison for 5 years. I was on an outreach program. I went into the community and told my story to local businesses and local area college students. From the University of Minnesota, I met a professor, and we co-authored a paper that was published in the Business Journal of Ethics in January this year and gets taught at the college level for forensic accounting classes and sales and marketing classes. So I tell you this because as much as they tried to beat me and take everything from me, I came home in better shape physically, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally than I'd ever been in my life. And today I'm in the coaching and training business, and I teach other real estate professionals and entrepreneurs how to live a better lifestyle while scaling their business, how to scale your business, how to do more, but how to live a more balanced quality lifestyle. Because we so often forget the things that are important in our life. We get so sidetracked with business or other people's needs that we forget, who matters and what matters most. I can tell stories where, I put my family aside or put my wife aside to do something else, thinking I was doing it for the greater interest of the family. And really, that's not what they wanted.
Yeah.
So,
I think we do a lot of that. And what's interesting is, yeah, there were people and things between this, but then also too, when you're alone in that room, you have to ponder your own decisions. And I think it's easier if it's other people harming us to get over it, because then that's somebody we can beat. That's somebody we can, pump iron to or go run against, this enemy. I think what's harder is when we look back at our own choices, because then that face on the dartboard is ours. And did you ever come to a time where you were pissed at yourself? And then how did you forgive yourself for the mistakes that you made on it? Because I find that to be the hardest battle that people have, is to say with absolute radical honesty and acceptance, this is what I did.
yeah.
And this is where I'm at right now. And this is how I have to go forward. And they have to forgive themselves for it. Because if they continually stay, well, everybody else is just hurting me, well, then it's very hard to get out of that. But if you can beat that, then you're limitless, So did that ever occur with you, or?
Yeah. So that's a really great question. And I'm glad you're asking that, because I think that so many people are in their own prison, right? You don't have to be behind a wall like I was to be in prison, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be locked up to be in prison. You can be in prison because of a broken relationship, a broken marriage, a broken business, some kind of abuse in your past, and walk around in some prison. What we need to learn to do is forgive ourselves and then forgive the other people. Hey, I had to learn to forgive myself. I had to know that it was okay that I made a mistake, and that I could come back and build another business and be wildly successful, and be okay with what had happened in the past. And I can't allow other people to dictate how I feel. So I think it comes from, humility, and just listen. My goal in life today is to give back. How do I think one of the first things I said to you when we met is, how do I add value to your world? How
Yeah,
do
you
I add
did.
value to your network, right? And that's what it's about for me today. But other people need to forgive themselves. So not only did I need to forgive myself, but I needed to forgive my ex-partner. And here's how I believe I did it. I believe I did it because I pressed into Jesus. And for me, that's one of the most critical things in my life, is my relationship with, my Lord and Savior. And because of that relationship, because of my Bible studies and my teachings, and how I still, lead a Bible study, since I've been home on the outside, that has kept me balanced. That has kept me, in a place where, I can honestly say I'm grateful today.
Mm.
I didn't need to go away for 10 years. I didn't need to go away for all that time, but
Yeah.
I needed the lessons that I learned, and I learned a lot of valuable lessons. I came home a different guy. So
Well, that's good. And I think sometimes, God does for us what we can't do for ourselves, and we can't even see it at the time. And sometimes it's a really tough lesson that we've got to learn. But I believe the toughest lessons, if we look at the Bible and we read anything about the truly most spiritual people, the toughest lessons came from the people who had the most to give in the end. So they had to get through more. They were just bigger personalities, or they had a bigger story to give. So their tough time was even tougher. And that's scary too, especially if you think of yourself as a great person, because then you're like, well, I don't want to go through that big, great time. Can I just know it now? And the idea is, yeah, you can, but you have to get centered first. You can't just meander along. You've got to pay attention to those red flags and things, you know, in your life. And there's many people like Mike, and we're talking to Mike Morawski, and he's at mycoreintentions.com. And we can learn from others. You know, we can, and we don't have to go through the same thing, you know, that Mike went through or that others have went through. We're able, you know, that's one good thing about being a human. We don't have to just make all the mistakes all on ourselves. You know, we're not out there foraging and eating rotten cheese and dying to figure out which, you know, cheese is the cheese we can eat. We've got thousands of years of building upon other people's, you know, dying of cheese. Well, I don't know where I come up with that, but you know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean by that, you know, like not putting what did they die from in the Middle Ages? Oh, tomatoes. They thought tomatoes were poisonous because they had lead plates, and they would store tomatoes in these plates and these bowls made out of lead, and it caused people to go insane. And it wasn't the tomatoes, it was actually the lead in the plates, but the acids got it out. So
yeah, if the lead doesn't get you, the locusts will.
Right. The plague from the Middle Ages. Anyway, guys, we were talking to Mike Morawski with mycoreintentions.com. And so now that you've done such an amazing journey, and you're so many years out, and I wanted people to hear this story because it's an important story. But now when you talk to people, you're still able to talk about real estate, but you can only do it in an educational form. And you talk about the real estate ethics, and you talk about that. Do you feel that you've helped? I mean, what does it feel like have you ever had someone who was like on the path to doing maybe similar things, and you were able to stop them so they didn't make the same mistake? And how wonderful is that?
Yeah. I think that I've helped a number of people along the way as far as choices and decisions. You know, every day we're faced with choices and decisions, and there's choices that can take us down a path that might not even be intentional. Right? It could be an unintentional choice. Not that the choice was unintentional, but the action was unintentional to cause what happens. Here's what I say. You know, I wrote an ethics course, and teaching ethics in prison. One of the things I would say is, hey, listen, just because you act unethically doesn't mean you break the law. But enough unethical actions, you will ultimately break the law. And, you know, I walked in the gray area for a long time. And I don't want to be rigid today and say, you know, it's either black or white, right? I don't want to say that this is the only way to do it. But here's an example. So something that as simple as this, right? It's tax time right now. And you get everything over to your accountant. And your accountant calls and he says, hey, Jennifer, he said, I noticed this year that you have receipts for $700 in travel. But, you know, the IRS will allow you up to $2,500 in travel as a business expense, even without receipts. But you only have 700 in receipts. What would you like me to do? How much should I take the 700 or should I take the 2,500? And Jennifer, don't answer. Don't answer, right?
That's a hard one. I'm like, we've gone through a pandemic. I lost 2 companies. Don't ask me that. Bob, don't even ask me that. I'll just tell CBA, don't even ask. Don't even ask.
So
it's tough.
So
that would be a tough one though, right? And I think there's a lot of people be like that. Now that's a tough one, because who's the bad guy? Is the evil people that's taken our taxes and spent $1.9 trillion stimulus on and gave you back a 0.0005% of your own money. So this is our money that we earned, and then they gave $25,000 to the Gulf Coast Anglerfish Foundation so they could count anglerfish. So it's like you're asking somebody's like, I got a gripe already, you know.
Well, I wonder if my golf club got any to wash balls.
Probably so. Probably so. Anyway, I stopped you because that it triggered me. I got triggered. Okay, so yeah, that's a very good question. What do you say? Of course, the ethical question would be, I'm going to take what I have receipts for.
Right,
we know what the correct answer is on that, but finish your story.
Yeah, so I would ask that question in a class of 30 guys, And invariably I would get a third, and a third. Take the 700. Absolutely. I won't do anything wrong ever again in my life. Take the 700, take the 2,500. I'm not going to get caught. Or you know what? Just to make sure that I don't get caught, let's split the difference. How about I only take 1,500, right?
Well, if it's the CPA, then who are the people saying, but if the CPA is asking me this, aren't they liable for the audit? That's another question too, right? You're like, oh, did I throw a new one in there? I'm devious. You can already tell. Sorry, folks. IRS.
So there,
IRS.
there's a lot of case studies like that I would walk through in a class, but it comes down to ethical behavior. It comes down to integrity, and integrity, who are you when nobody's watching, when nobody's paying attention?
Honestly, I'm too afraid of the IRS. So I would just do it. I am afraid. So I'm a scaredy cat, but on things like that, I'm not afraid in business. I'm not afraid to take risks, but the risks have to be, where there isn't a big risk of breaking the law or consequences. Then it's not worth it, because I'm just unlucky. I don't know. I think of myself as unlucky on things like that. Like I would be the unlucky bank robber or the unlucky bad person, because I would always get caught by something stupid. I'd fall down and trip and bust my nose. My DNA's everywhere, and they would get me immediately. I mean, I'm not the personality type that can get away with anything. Just never have been. I got to walk the straight and narrow. That's why I'm in compliance. But anyway, well, guys, we're getting to the end. Okay, so we've been talking to Michael Morawski, and all of his information is going to be at the end of the show, and he's with mycoreintentions.com. Is there anything you want to leave us with before we go? Any words of wisdom or anything?
Like I said at the beginning, success leaves clues, right? And if you need to learn something, if you need to grow, go find somebody who's done it before you and follow them. I think mentoring and coaching is really important. I've been in coaching for 20 years, and I still have coaches today in my life, because I believe that there's other people that can help you plan, help you execute, and help you be accountable to that. So I encourage people that whether it's help in business, help personally, go get some coaching, right? And I'd love to give away a copy of my book, Exit Plan. Your listeners could go download it from the website at mycoreintentions.com/exit plan and download a free ebook. If anybody's like me and they like to read a book and dog ear the pages and highlight it, they'd have to, you can buy one there too, but
along with your cassette tape.
Yeah. Right. Somebody asked me the other day if I still had that. I said, God, I don't know. I said, I got a couple boxes in an attic somewhere. I wonder if it might be in there. I might have kept it. I don't know, but
yeah, you should put that in like a little display case if you ever find it. That would be an interesting little box, shadow box.
I think I left it in the glove compartment of my 67 Olds 442 though.
Man, that's a long time ago. That's a long time ago. Okay, guys. Well, we're here at the end. Thank you, EntrePods, for being with us today. I hope you had as much fun with Mike Morawski as I did today, and I hope you'll have a great week. Don't forget to like, comment, and share, and please give us that 5-star review. That's how we get incredible people like Mike on the show, to be able to share their unique and incredible experience with us, so we can all learn together, so we don't make the same mistakes, and we can have happier and healthier and much more abundant lives. Again, all the links that you heard about today are going to be at the end of this show notes. And thank you guys so much. And if you need anything else, just head on over to EntrePods.com, become a member, and you can talk to me, and you can even get maybe an introduction to Mike, because that's what we do. Thank you guys so much, and have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening, and please go give us a 5-star rating on your preferred listening platform if you enjoyed the show. This helps us reach more listeners like you and keep booking amazing guests. If you'd like to join our growing EntrePods community, want our social media links to like or share, or inquire about one-on-one strategy calls with our host Jennifer, please visit EntrePods.com. See you next time, and here's to you and your best life imaginable.